released April 22nd, 2025 for PC VR by developer and publisher Cellaritas Games. The Descent VR offers up an unsettling yet satisfying jump scare filled VR experience that does not overstay its welcome. Thanks to the publisher for the Steam key, watch Season 12 of the Lab Video Game TV on Flow One in 25 Caribbean countries. Download the Stream Blue app to watch us on the go. Check out gaming news every Thursday at 4 p.m. during the Sage Projects on Ontario's Island Radio 101.3 FM. Now, let's descend into the Rockwell mines. VR does so many genres justice, and just as with tabletop sims, I find walking sims to be also an ideal fit for the platform. There's an adage we enthusiasts like to use: everything is better in VR, and I hold firm to that. I've relished many experiences in VR, and I found myself admitting many times this would not have been nearly as good had it been a flat experience. VR simply brings a whole new perspective, a whole new dimension to any experience, even a non-interactive video. And my point is, walking sims are a whole different beast, a completely different experience in VR. The Descent VR is a very basic walking sim, but it works well regardless. I'll get into that more in a minute. Let's talk story.
Amidst the depths of the earth, our celebrations felt like something out of a storybook. The laughter of the miners resonated through the tunnels, creating a symphony of joy that drowned out the surrounding darkness.
While the story isn't much, it does create a purpose, a rhyme and reason, so to speak.
Return to my hometown haunted by the chilling narratives enveloping the Rockwell mine.
You're Robert Smith, an investigative journalist returning to your hometown of Rockwell to figure out the truth behind disappearances and deaths that took place over a period of time, known as the Rockwell Mines Incident. This story isn't a great one, and isn't fully explained at the onset. It's not fully explained at any point, really, but things do start to piece together a bit more as you progress, as you read posters and notes strewn throughout the levels. Because the story gradually unraveled, it gave me reason to believe there might have been something more to it. But when it basically boils down to something involving conjuring Satan, it kinda lost me there. How can I best put this? To be fair to the developers, well, the summon Satan thing just felt like a lowest hanging fruit, path of least resistance approach. It felt like lazy storytelling. I'm not saying the devs needed to go as deep and convoluted as Madison, but I wanted something more. Something that would make me remember the Descent VR story. Something that would have left me saying by game's end, I didn't see that coming. Or, okay, that was new and interesting. But summoning the devil?
As the truth crystallizes before me, I am overcome by a profound sense of dread. We have unwittingly triggered a ritual intended to summon the devil from this accursed place.
There are notes left behind by John Wilson, a man searching for his daughter, who came to a pretty dark revelation and sacrificial end for the greater good. But while the attempt at storytelling is appreciated, it still felt lackluster at best.
What really caused the explosion, the killings? How could they turn on each other like that? I had no choice. I had to defend my daughter from those who were trying to take her away.
In the sound department, this was handled very well. There's not much in the way of a score, but atmospheric sounds, the creaks, clanks, overall creepy sound list had every box checked. The Descent VR leans in heavy on the jump scares, and while not as good as Madison VR, Cellaritas Games got me with at least 80% of them. And the sound design was a major contributor to the heart-pounding moments. The voice acting unfortunately bordered on subpar, low-tier B-movie grade acting and lousy AI. It's not the worst voice acting, but it has this lifeless, flat, phoned-in quality to it.
Deep in the mine, everyone is emerging from the depths radiated, as if they've encountered some sort of nuclear material.
The jury is still out deliberating whether this was AI or not. And while I'm not encouraging cliches, the voice of our protagonist would have sat better with me had it been a more noir-styled, Max Payne-sounding voice actor.
These unsettling tales have lingered for years, their darkness casting shadows over the community. Drawing on the skills and knowledge forged in my studies, I am now poised to unravel the mysterious history that conceals the mine's secrets.
The visuals in The Descent VR are impressive. Stellaritas Games are the cats behind Tomb Explorer VR, and these devs clearly prioritize beautiful visuals. While the sound did a great job in creating atmosphere, the visuals further complemented said atmosphere. The sound and visuals work hand in hand to deliver a truly immersive experience. The environments look great, from the outdoors to deep inside these creepy mines. The lighting was handled really well, and so were the character designs. My hands also look pretty good. I also appreciate the collision detection. While not super accurate, the lack of clipping in VR games is always appreciated. The Descent VR may have some optimization issues though. I noticed at certain points. I first experienced this at the beginning outside the mines gates. There was some major slowdown. I could barely move. The image got wavy, and the overall experience started to glitch. When I lowered the graphics settings, it seemed to help, but then after passing a certain point, I put the settings back up and everything seemed fine, until later in the mines, when I approached certain points. The slowdown happened again, so I think the devs need to take a look at that. But other than those minor, temporary hiccups, the Descent VR looks great. Over in gameplay, where the Descent VR shines and raises a few question marks at the same time. On startup, we've got a handful of settings to tinker with, but enough to get us going. We've got gameplay settings, which includes VR settings, vibration, rotation type and speed, locomotion, height, calibration, and crouch. Then we've got visual settings, sound and spectator mode. Like I said earlier, the Descent VR is a walking sim. But the term walking sim has become unclear in its meaning over the years. Some walking sims will be like Firewatch, which thrives off its narrative, the conversation and potential relationship between you and the lady over the radio. Then you'll have walking sims like Madison VR, which the Descent VR seems to have taken inspiration. However, Madison VR was primarily fueled by its deep psychological terror and heavy puzzle element. There are also walking sims with a hint of action, where you may have to occasionally defend yourself, even if it's simply by way of quick-time events. Then there are walking sims, where you can and cannot die. The Descent VR falls somewhere between all of this. There's no action of any kind in the Descent VR, unless you consider constant jump scares action. I also don't think you can get a game over here. There are times when I received damage. There are points where you can be electrocuted, or your lungs filled with gas. But I never stuck around long enough in any of these scenarios to find out if my character would actually expire. So, maybe he wouldn't. There was even a part where it seemed someone was chasing me, but I never got caught. There was this bit where some dead guy set off some dynamite. I incurred damage, but never died, so I have reason to believe there is no game over here. But don't quote me on that. I have mentioned Madison VR several times so far, and with good reason. While not as creepy as Madison VR, the Descent VR takes a little here and there from the Scare King. But thankfully, there are no puzzles in the Descent VR. You'll have to find some keys and other objects like a crowbar, a fuse and such. But the devs clearly wanted this to be a casual experience, one you could get through in one sitting, or standing in my case. And Stellaritas achieved that. Sometimes a locked door that seemed to require a key gets unlocked after a scripted event. Something scares you. You look back, and the door is now open. Actually, if this were a mind bending experience like Madison VR, I would not have liked it nearly as much as I did. This was a get in, get out quickly experience, and I so appreciate that. I was able to enjoy this entire experience without ever getting stuck, without ever experiencing fatigue, other than that of the discomfort that comes with wearing a VR headset for longer than 15 minutes. But I simply took a break between levels and was able to complete this stress free. I can't overstate how much I love that. You begin your journey into these cursed mines with your backpack, a flashlight, a glow stick, a camera, and a journal, all of which you're able to familiarize yourself with through a quick and useful tutorial, useful to a point. Now, unless I missed something, here are where the question signs I mentioned earlier pop up. I went through the Descent VR from beginning to end, the entire experience, which took me approximately 3 hours. I was told to make journal entries. I have a journal on my backpack, but at no point could I figure out how to make an entry, so I didn't. I was told to read everything. I did. There's even an option to have everything narrated. I did that. I was given a camera, instructed how to use it. I used it, but I have not figured out why I had it to begin with. I can't review the pictures I took, and as with the reading everything bit, none of these elements have any impact on your progress, the gameplay, or the ending. And if I'm wrong, if I missed something, devs, viewers, feel free to chime in at this point and let me know what that was that I neglected to do. After a while, I just started taking pictures of everything I thought might be useful, in case at the end there was some kind of accomplishment log. But nothing. If, however, I am correct, and the journaling has no effect on the entire experience, and was simply added as busy work, manufactured immersion, or a false sense of immersion, the illusion of immersion, which, when I think about it, is what pretty much every video game is. Well, I'm just saying, that's kind of weird, and I'd go as far as to say a missed opportunity, putting you in the role of an investigative journalist, giving you access to the tools of trade, and not having said tools, said mechanics actually have a purpose in the experience outside giving you an illusion. Well, like I said, that's just kind of weird.
I'm losing my mind down here.
While I'm not asking for puzzles, like the puzzles and progression system found in Madison VR through the use of the camera, the devs could have incorporated the camera in the actual experience a bit more. Even if they show the pictures you took in the end credits, which, by the way, there are none. Yes, no end credits. Another odd design choice. Look, there was an option to open the journal, look through entries, but I never figured out how to add an entry. But what makes all of this odd is, I went through the entire experience regardless. There seems to be no consequences for not journaling anything, and no reason to take pictures. This, however, isn't really a complaint. More a lingering question that may never be answered. I also encountered a few bugs and other glitches, and sometimes picking up an item became a bit of a cluster between said item and items on my belt. And on the subject of items, when I think back to the inventory, when I look at all the empty slots in my backpack, it makes me think that perhaps the devs had bigger plans for this walking sim and just left them behind. Think about it. I hardly had anything to put in my backpack the entire way through. And harken back to what I said about the camera and the journal. Yeah, the Descent VR feels suspiciously incomplete. But I did have a good time regardless. It looks good, sounds great, and performed well for most parts. And it certainly had me jumping and cursing out loud most way through. The jump scares, unlike Madison VR, wore off after a while. But like I said at the beginning, the Descent VR did not overstay its welcome. It was actually shorter than I expected. Thanks again to the developers for the Steam key, and should you folks ever decide to expand on the Descent VR, maybe a sequel of sorts, I'd gladly jump back in. Watch Season 12 of the Lab Video Game TV on Flow One in 25 Caribbean countries. Download the Stream Blue app to watch us on the go. Check out gaming news every Thursday at 4 p.m. during the Sage Projects on Ontario's Island Radio 101.3 FM. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and hit that notification bell. If, on the other hand, I found a way to piss you off with this one, then the logical course of action would be to dislike, unsub, and leave a fiery comment voicing your disgust and displeasure. Either way, I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.